Isekai. We are so spoiled when it comes to getting a new Isekai anime. We can get multiple multi-seasonal releases every season and then barely watch half of them. But I think there's a point to be made here, because Isekai has been mass produced for the better part of a decade, and still some of the most popular ones are not always the newest. That's also the case for my favorite, which despite being released 8 years ago, still stands at the peak of Isekai. So today I'm gonna talk about why No Game No Life is such a perfect Isekai. Isekai is one of my favorite genres in anime. Getting to be a part of these epic fantasy worlds are always fun to me, and I've always loved how these shows are portrayed. I'm a big fan of medieval settings. It often doesn't matter to me whether it's high or low fantasy, as long as it's within the term medieval. From castles and kingdoms to duels and swordsmanship, I love it all. So over the years I've consumed an extreme amount of Isekai, and to this day only a few shows has been at the top together with No Game No Life. Most of these shows have one thing in common, and that's world building. Now, the big difference between the lower tier Isekais and the ones at the top is just that, world building. And it can somewhat be a broad term, so I'll try to be more specific. When watching an Isekai, as well as other shows, memorability is always key. Memorability is what keeps you thinking about the show even after you've done watching it. It makes you curious and it's a driving factor when researching a show that you're done with. When a show gets stuck in your head, you know it's done its job right. Romance shows does this with relationships, shonen with its action, comedy with its humors, drama with its suspense, and lastly, Isekai with its amazing worlds. The whole selling point of Isekai is the worlds they get transported to, so without a well-written world, it doesn't matter how good the characters in that show are, it won't work, at least for me. And these fleshed out worlds are not exclusive to the big shows on a high budget and multiple seasons. Sometimes an idea in one of the short 12 episoders can be equally as thrilling. And it's just that there's a lot more time and effort put into the worlds of the bigger shows, and that includes effort in the pacing too. It's easy to say that ReZero and Mushoku Tensei's world are far superior to anything else, but that might solely be for the fact that they went into the show knowing that it was going to be a longer series, or could afford a slower and more thought out pacing. We can't know for sure, but there's a clear difference in quality. No Game No Life is in a way a 12 episoder with boobs and OP main characters. So why am I implying that this show can rival giants like Konosuba, ReZero and Mushoku Tensei? While I love the main characters of the show, it's mainly because of the amazing world of Disboard. Disboard is the amazing world in which No Game No Life takes place. From episode 1 we get introduced to the insane history of the world and its special rules. The rules of the world come from very long ago when the races of the world were at war, and while they were too busy fighting it out, the god of games, Tet, took control of the world as the one true god. Tet made all attempts of murders, war and robbery forbidden, and all conflicts, disagreements and even nations' powers were now to be decided by games. If both parties agreed to the rules of the game and offered the winner objects of equal value, the game would be played out as agreed. It's impossible by the commandment of God to go against the agreement, creating a theoretically perfectly fair world where as long as one had a perfect understanding of a game and its variables, could defeat any foe. And just this concept alone is crazy cool and all, but what blew my mind was when we learned that the same rules holds true for God himself. This means that you can win everything in the world, and when you do, you get to challenge God himself to a game, with you betting the entire world for his title as the one true God. And that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. The concept for this world is some of the most amazing writing I've had the pleasure of experiencing. It's very easy to take the show for granted with its humors, insane characters and situations, but the lore for this world is by far some of the best I've ever come across. Not to say that the other parts of the shows are lackluster. Our main duo, Sora and Shiro, are geniuses who struggled in our world, but in their new environment, they can shine. They fit in the world and their wit and humor are always fun to watch. But without the setting they are in, they would never work as characters. And with world building comes another important factor outside of the structure of it, and that is the creatures of the world. Who lives in the world, how are they connected to it, and do they make sense? And this to me is also a thing perfectly done in the world of Disboard. The races of the world are unique from each other. Some of them are seen as weapons of mass destruction, some as gods, some as animals, and some as humans. Every race has their own race piece, for a total of 16 race pieces. You will need every race piece to play a game against God, making every single race important to the world. It's only when all 16 are collected that you can put together your side of the board and start the game. And while I could sit here and explain the insane history of every race, that would take forever. So I encourage you to experience that for yourself. With that, I'm saying that every race in this world has their own technology, magics, politics, weapons, and their own specialized games. Meaning not just is the world as a whole a giant game, but also every single race in the world are all on the same goal, but with different ways of getting there. And it's a journey of overcoming all of their games and challenges to reach the top, which makes it out the story of the anime, and that is exactly what Sora and Shiro is trying to do. And this is about as far I can go without pretty much spoiling the entire show. But I can't end it here without talking about the elephant in the room. And those who are invested into the show will know where I'm getting at. Where is Season 2? As mentioned before, this show is currently a 12 episoder, but it didn't have a real ending at the end of its run. And after that we got a movie, but the movie takes place thousands of years before the main story, meaning it's not moving the current story forward. But that is not me saying the movie is bad, because you will never guess what the purpose of the movie is. World building. Remember the war I said happened thousands of years ago in the main story? Well, that's exactly what the movie is about. The war, humanity's struggle in the world, and how Tet became the one true god. It's about powerless beings in a lawless land, and how they use their minds and games to lead the war to its end, and how Tet eventually put the laws in the world. It's one of the better anime movies I've seen, just because of the fact that we get an explanation for the world. While the movie can stand on its own, I highly recommend watching the anime first, as then the movie will give a lot of context to the show. Now, the books are still ongoing, and the story is closing in on its end. While neither Madhouse, the production company of the original series, nor the author has cancelled the show, there is sadly no current information saying a season 2 will be coming. But considering its popularity, and now that it's close to its end, it's not too far to think that someone, somewhere will pick up the story and continue the anime. Please? Hello people, and thank you for watching my No Game No Life video. I hope this gave an explanation to why I value world building so heavily in Isekai. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, as more anime talk will be coming soon. Until next time, have a good one y'all.